Hey, this is Ian from Essential Tennis. Within this video and the two after it, I'm going to show you how you can improve your game 100% faster or more without spending any more time on the court than you already do. I know that sounds too good to be true, but I'm completely confident that it can happen for you because I've seen it over and over again for players just like you. My motivation for creating this training series really stems from wanting to solve one of the biggest problems that passionate amateur tennis players face on a regular basis: hitting a plateau in their improvements and getting stuck at the same level. Sometimes it's just for a couple of weeks or months. Other times it can be for years or even decades. No matter how long it lasts, one thing is for sure: nothing is more frustrating than losing to the same players over and over again without any obvious steps in the right direction, especially when you really take your tennis improvement seriously and have a passion for that process. Good news, I've spent my entire teaching career helping passionate adult tennis players just like you bust out of those ruts, and I've boiled down the approach that works best into a few simple steps, which we're going to start covering right now. Step number one in fast-tracking the improvement process is really understanding how we're wired when it comes to becoming better at a skill like tennis or anything else in life for that matter. And we can break this down into 4 different phases of learning any kind of skill. And it's really critical to understand how these work together because at the end, once we get down to this last phase of learning, we're able to win on autopilot without even being aware or conscious or thinking about it. And that's what I want you to be able to experience. So as we work through these phases, phase number 1 is being unconsciously incompetent. That's what UI stands for. This is where we start with all new skills. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know that we're not good at it, and we can't execute whatever the skill is correctly either. So this is just bare beginner. After that, once we get some information, maybe we've taken a lesson or we watched a video online or we read a book, next up comes consciously incompetent. So now we have some knowledge about where we are as a novice and where we need to get to, and maybe even some kind of steps on how we could possibly get there, but we still can't execute whatever the skill is correctly yet. Next up, after a little bit of practice and repetition, is the phase consciously competent. So we have that knowledge, we've put in enough repetitions that we can now express that new skill correctly, but only while still being conscious of it. We have to be thinking about it in order to do it correctly. As soon as we stop thinking about it, then we go back to our previous habit, which was not very good. It wasn't the best possible way that we could execute that skill. And then after enough conscious repetitions of doing it correctly, we finally get down to unconsciously competent. This is the ultimate, and this is when we watch players on TV compete, this is the phase that they're in. For the vast majority of their skills, they're doing everything at a very high level without even having to think about it. And this is where ultimately we want to move all of our skills to, if at all possible, because it's here that we can start to perform and win on autopilot without even having to think about it. Understanding how to move through and progress through these 4 phases of learning is the secret to ongoing, continual improvement without getting stuck in a rut or in a plateau. So let me show you how this works exactly. We're going to use a serve example here to really illustrate how it's possible to continue your improvement as a tennis player. So let's say that you've been playing tennis for a while, but you're around a 3.0 level. So not super advanced yet, but you've been playing for at least a couple years, and your current serve habit is a frying pan motion. Maybe you're familiar with this, maybe not. All it means is that basically you take the racket back with it facing upwards and you just kind of push the ball over. It gets the job done, it gets the ball in the box, but you know that much more is possible for your level of play with your serve specifically. So as long as you have that habit in place, your serve is going to maintain a steady, consistent level of output, about a 3.0 level serve. So this is your unconscious habit now as a 3.0 player. In order to reach the next level in your serve, what you need to do is make some kind of fundamental change to your technique. And when that happens, you'll move from being unconsciously competent in your old habit to being consciously incompetent to the new one. So let's say you go and you take a lesson and your pro says, all right, well, you're doing okay with your serve, but you could do a lot better if you changed your grip from a forehand grip to a continental grip so that we can get the racket on edge and actually have some snap with the racket head and create more racket head speed and more power, more spin, all that good stuff. So we're moving from unconsciously competent with your old motion to consciously incompetent with the new one. And now we have to begin the process of repetition, correct repetition, focusing on that new change to move from consciously incompetent to consciously competent. Maybe you continue working with that pro, or you go and work on your own. You try to put in enough repetitions that, all right, cool, now I can execute the new, better motion correctly most of the time, but still have to think about it. And of course, our goal ultimately is to take that new service motion and have it back under unconsciously competence. So now let's say you made that grip change. Now the racket is on edge, moving up towards the ball. And now we have, let's say, a 3.5 serve because of that change. So great. This process only stops when you become satisfied. If you're totally fine with this, then great. You can just hang out at that 3.5 level serve. If you want to continue to improve, then the process starts again. And so maybe next time you work on your trophy pose or your leg drive or some other technical element that bumps you back up to consciously incompetent, and then you work your way back through here again. And then we go to a 4.0 level serve and a 4.5 level serve, so on and so forth. This is how you can continually improve. And it's critical to understand that it all comes down to focusing on the right things. If you just go out and hit a lot of balls without moving through this process, you'll stay stuck at the same level of play for months and years and even decades if you don't move through this process step by step. So now the question that's begging to be answered is, how can we move from unconsciously competent with an old habit to consciously incompetent with a new and improved habit, and then bring that new skill back to unconscious as quickly as possible? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to be diving into in detail in the next video, which is going to be out in just the next day or two. Within it, I'm going to share the incredibly effective process that I utilize to help my students breeze through those 4 phases of learning and see huge improvements faster than they ever thought possible. Before I sign off for today, I have a quick question for you that I'd love for you to answer down below. What is the #1 part of your game that has the biggest potential for advancing your level of play if you had an effective step-by-step process to follow for improving it? Remember, I'll be telling you what that process is in the next video, but before you see it, I want you to have a good idea of where you can apply it so that you can use what I teach right away. So give it some thought and then tell me down below. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate your time and your attention. Keep an eye on your email inbox because I'll be sending you a message with a link to video 2 in just the next day or two. Until then, good luck, take care, and I'll see you on the courts.